Who will the Mavericks land in free agency as we sit only hours away from a frenzied NBA free agency period that is sure to be a little wild and crazy? This is the Gray Area right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. And you can catch you on your home of the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers, 105.3 The Fan. The Dallas Mavericks look to make a splash in free agency as we are only hours away from a frenzied NBA free agency period that is sure to continue to create drama as rumors continue to swirl about the likes of Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Spencer Dinwiddie, Richaun Holmes, among others, looking to potentially land in new places. Bleacher Report's Jake Fisher reporting earlier today, quote, DeMar DeRozan was said to have strong interest from New York, Detroit, and Dallas, although there is still a belief that Tim Hardaway Jr. could re-sign with the Mavericks on a 4-year deal. Dwight Powell is a name that continues to surface in trade speculation as well, end quote. Very interesting information there from Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report, as obviously DeMar DeRozan will have a lot of contenders for his services going into this upcoming season, where he will be 32 years old, coming off of a season where he averaged nearly 7 assists per game. We know it's death by 1,000 paper cuts when it comes to DeMar DeRozan and his mid-range game, and we saw how DeMar DeRozan torched the Dallas Mavericks this past season, especially inside of the American Airlines Center. Could he be a potential fit for the Dallas Mavericks? There are also rumors swirling that he could be looking for a reunion in Miami with Kyle Lowry. It appears to be all but said and done for Kyle Lowry to become a member of the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat picked up Goran Dragic option going into this upcoming year, potentially facilitating a sign and trade with the Toronto Raptors to be able to get Kyle Lowry to the Miami Heat, Goran Dragic potentially to the Toronto Raptors, which could set up an opportunity for the Miami Heat to acquire a trade exception that will allow them even more money to potentially go after DeMar DeRozan and team him up with Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler down in Miami. So if you're a fan of DeMar DeRozan and his game and potentially want to see him in a Mavericks uniform, that could be a serious blow to those chances potentially of landing one DeMar DeRozan in a Dallas Maverick uniform, given how close and how tight he is with Kyle Lowry, and of course how tight and how close Kyle Lowry is to Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's daughter, Kyle Lowry, is the godfather too, so you could see why he would be so interested. In fact, he tried to get there during this past NBA trade deadline, and it didn't necessarily work out. So the names of Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan may be names that you need to X off if you're the Dallas Mavericks. Do you potentially pivot to a guy in Spencer Dinwiddie, who's dealing, of course, with a couple of torn ACLs from his past, but at the same time could be a guy that could fit as a playmaking shooting guard alongside Luka Doncic? Speaking of Luka Doncic, Mark Stein reporting in his NBA newsletter coming up out later today that the Dallas Mavericks will offer Luka Doncic the 5-year, $202 million rookie max extension, and will have those discussions with him post-Olympics. Of course, Team Slovenia right now is 3-0 in the Olympics. They are in the knockout stages where they will take on Germany with an opportunity to try and advance in the Olympic basketball tournament. Luka Doncic's sole focus is said to be on trying to help Slovenia achieve a medal in the Olympics, and will have those discussions about his extension after his Olympics are over with. So no surprise there when it comes to Luka Doncic signing his rookie max extension and doing so once his Olympic game experience is over with. But back to NBA free agency. Names that are bantied about potentially, and a guy in Lonzo Ball who's been rumored to potentially going to the Chicago Bulls. A new rumor popping up from the Athletics' John Hollinger about the idea that he could be involved in a double sign and trade with Devontae Graham of the Charlotte Hornets, which would allow Lonzo Ball to be reunited with his brother LaMelo Ball in Charlotte. Now that would be an interesting pairing, obviously, to see the Ball brothers together in Charlotte playing under Michael Jordan. So if that was a name that you were potentially looking for to see if he could land as a Dallas Maverick, given the fact that it appears that the Pelicans will still try to pursue Kyle Lowry, but it doesn't appear that that will actually be able to go down. If you're the Pelicans, do you find yourself trying to get back after Lonzo Ball by missing out on Kyle Lowry? But for the Dallas Mavericks, names that could still be available: Norman Powell, who may be on his way back to the Portland Trail Blazers after having a career year with the Raptors and the Portland Trail Blazers. Spencer Dinwiddie, as we mentioned already. Richaun Holmes could be potentially on his way back to the Sacramento Kings. The Athletic also reporting, though, that if someone is willing to offer him more than 4 years at over $60 million, he may be willing to listen to what someone may be willing to offer him. It's interesting because the Mavericks find themselves with a bunch of big men. They picked up the $4.1 million option on your man, Willie Cauley-Stein. Dwight Powell is still also there. They just traded for Moses Brown. And, of course, they have the birthday boy today, Kristaps Porzingis, still on the roster, who turned 26 years old today. So the Mavericks are no shortage of big men. Plus, there's still the idea that they may bring back Boban Marjanovic to the squad also. So you could be looking at a situation where you have several 7-footers on your squad going into this upcoming season, not to mention you still have Dwight Powell running around. Interesting with Tim Hardaway Jr., though. Tim Hardaway Jr., whom a lot of Mavs fans may think could be on his way out the door receiving interest from a team like the Detroit Pistons, who are also rumored to have interest in a DeMar DeRozan. They've got some young pieces there with Isaiah Stewart, obviously Sadiq Bey, under head coach Dwayne Casey. Does Tim Hardaway Jr. find himself potentially walking during this free agency period? It would be interesting because a guy who has a projected salary value of between $16 to $18 million, that would be a price tag that I think most Mavs fans would want to bring him back at. Now, if you start getting into the $20 million range now, we might have some questions about whether or not you want to bring back Tim Hardaway Jr. But nonetheless, other names that could be of interest if Tim Hardaway Jr. does walk, a guy in Evan Fournier who's having difficulty trying to get a deal done potentially to stay in Boston with the Boston Celtics after he was traded there during the season in Orlando going to Boston. We'll see how things work out with Evan Fournier, who, of course, helped dominate Team USA in their first game in the Olympics when he was playing with Team France. It appears that Chris Paul is on his way back to the Phoenix Suns. Mike Conley, barring some kind of surprise, looks like he's on his way back to the Utah Jazz. So the names that you're seeing starting to be bantied about that the Mavericks were potentially rumored for potentially are heading back to their original teams. The Mavericks could be operating with $34 million in cap space, as they have already, of course, moved on from Josh Richardson, whom they traded to the Boston Celtics. But what they do with requisite cap space, if they do decide to move on from Tim Hardaway Jr., will be interesting. There are also rumors out there that Dennis Schroeder could have interest from the Dallas Mavericks to potentially become a member of their basketball team. Restricted free agent John Collins appears to be headed back to the Atlanta Hawks after a deep playoff run with them. I've even seen names like an Alex Caruso potentially want the Do y'all want Alex Caruso as a member of the Mavericks? I don't know necessarily that y'all want that. I just saw some folks banting about that, and I was like, no, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. But hey, stranger things have happened. But obviously, it's going to be a frenzy NBA free agency period. Names that will continue to be thrown out there. Rumors will continue to swirl all day about where some of these players could be potentially landing. The Los Angeles Lakers, who need a ton of basketball players after trading for Russell Westbrook, really have no one to really speak of after moving on from Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell, of course, part of the sign and trade deal, or the deal with the Washington Wizards. All kinds of stuff that will be happening during today's NBA free agency period. Who do you want to see the Mavericks potentially go out and sign during this free agency period, given some of the names that we're starting to see dry up already, even though free agency hasn't officially started yet? But at the same time, can Nico Harrison, the general manager of this basketball team, who says, look, we will take the identity of our head coach, Jason Kidd, when it comes to identifying free agents, and more importantly, who we surround Luka Doncic with because of how great he is of a player and a facilitator that he is, can Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks deliver on this free agency strategy that they look like they've doubled down on for the past 10 years to try and acquire someone? They're going to have to move, and to move quickly, given what is already starting to take place rumor-wise across the NBA free agency period. Can the Dallas Mavericks get themselves into these conversations seriously enough to be able to pull the trigger and execute and bring in someone to pair alongside Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis, and the rest of this team? Or do you see guys like Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, and others potentially depart from this team in order to create more cap space for this team to be able to go after some of the bigger names, including a Kawhi Leonard, who, look, it appears is on his way back to the Los Angeles Clippers, but according to Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports, may not necessarily be a slam dunk yet, as he may potentially listen to other teams who may want to have his services. You could take that for what it is. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. If any news breaks for the Dallas Mavericks, we will have it for you right here on Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. It's been another episode of The Gray Area. Happy NBA Free Agency Day. We'll talk to you later. Peace.